whenever you prefer someone else's opinion over God's truth, you have made that thing an idol. But if that person is you and you don't forgive yourself easily, well, you start holding yourself hostage to sin, and you also hold your identity hostage to sin. Good morning. I'm like, where's the camera? Where am I looking at? Hi, everyone. It is very stormy outside today. It is very, very cold. And I had zero motivation to fill up my fridge. And so I told this to my friend in the morning that she lives quite close to me, and she's like, let's go to our overexpensive, gross little tiny supermarket next to our house and do it together. Now, when I say it's cold, it's like, I don't know how much it is in Fahrenheit, but it's about, I think, 8 degrees, and because of the wind, it feels like 4. So, very cold. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to slap on some makeup so that I feel just a bit more put together today. Get dressed, meet my friend at the supermarket, and then we're gonna have a little chat. Hi, Cupper. Say good morning to Butter. Oh, also, before, listen to me. In my 20s, I'm like almost 32 now. I only found like one rogue white hair, and I was like, a white hair, oh my gosh. And then now I'm starting to realize that I'm having like visible, like right at the front white hairs. And I'm actually okay with it, but it has to be because my dad died. Like, I think the stress has been so like crazy that it's probably that. Thank you. Anyways, that's a bit morbid. Okay, let's go. Okay. I'm not exaggerating. It is cold outside. It's going to rain, and it's very, very windy outside. Even though I have the heating on, it's still cold. And so I'm bundled up also with a blanket. So if you guys hear sort of like whoosh in the background, it's because like that, there's a lot of wind. So I hope that's not too distracting. But thank you guys for being here. I wanted to talk today about a subject that I have been going through myself, and it is the subject of self-forgiveness. Now, I think that for me at least, it is much easier for me to forgive other people than it is for me to forgive myself. Share, guys, in the comments below if you are that person or not that person, but I know people that they don't feel regret very easily. I don't know if it's because of pride and they think that they usually are right and don't really feel very deeply the pain that they've caused to other people. So the level of their regret, even though it should be somewhere over here, is like way down there. But I'm not that type of person. If I know that I've hurt someone, I take it very seriously. It's very nice to have someone that forgives you easily, but if that person is you and you don't forgive yourself easily, well, you start holding yourself hostage to sin. And you also hold your identity hostage to sin. I've recently been in a situation in which I felt that people weren't dealing graciously with my weaknesses, even though I felt like I was really trying to deal graciously with theirs. My responsibility is to be as gracious as I can with people and with myself, like God would be unto me. But when it comes to the subject of self-forgiveness, I think it's one of those things that, first of all, it's really the better option between the two, because if someone else doesn't forgive you, well, you really can't control that. They might choose to never forgive you, and that's something that you will have to learn how to deal with. The good thing about self-forgiveness is that you do actually have a choice, and you can actually choose right. And so you're not under the graces or the mercy of someone else. Now, disclaimer, even if someone else chooses to never forgive you, that doesn't mean that you have to hold yourself hostage like they are. The good thing is, when you have a choice, you actually can choose right. Okay, so how do I deal with unforgiveness towards me, either from people or myself now versus in the past? let's do a comparison. In the past, if someone didn't forgive me for something, they would also sometimes treat me accordingly. I really do think that it was undeserving, and I don't mind people putting boundaries and saying like, hey, I don't want to be as close, I don't want to be part of this or that anymore. That's okay. Like, we have boundaries. Sometimes those things can't be redeemed or changed. But oftentimes the person is just sort of treating you in a way that you don't deserve. And so instead of like talking to you and trying to figure out what's going on and trying to have peace with you, they'll just cancel you out immediately. I often think that that's very unkind. Some relationships, they're not close enough for you to make the effort, but that also just depends on the level of relationship. My bottom line is to try and be at peace with all people as much as it is up to me. And that's the key word here, that as much as it's up to you, you need to try and be at peace. But peace looks like a whole bunch of different things. Peace doesn't necessarily mean reconciliation. It doesn't necessarily mean that you trust that person. It doesn't mean any of those things necessarily, but it does mean that as much as you can, try and be at peace with them. And so with every case scenario, you have to check what that peace looks like and what is the level of relationship that you are on. Is this person a core family member? Are they your boss? Are they a stranger? Who are they? And you need to decide what is appropriate and fitting in that setting. So that's when people don't forgive you for your sin. But how is it when I didn't forgive myself for my sin? Well, I was probably just as hard on myself. And I think that really came from the lack of understanding of how much God really does erase your sin. And so that's how I would deal with it in the past. And because of this thing that happened recently, I sort of had to stand before myself and confront my weaknesses and decide what I'm going to do with it this time, because I didn't want to be like old me that would hold myself hostage or had to feel like I needed to prove my innocence or prove that I wasn't what they thought I was. I just wasn't happy with the behavior that came out of me. And so I realized that if I had forgiven myself truly, then I would have just been like, I already asked for forgiveness. I don't see the reason why this needs to come up in the way that it's come up again. I'm choosing to forgive myself and I'm moving on. And instead of that, I was defensive. And I think cases like this are really telling, and they show you where you are on the progress scale of just say self-forgiveness. And I still have things to work on. And so this is where I am today. Whenever you prefer someone else's opinion over God's truth, you have made that thing an idol. You have surrendered to it. Your thoughts, your actions are bowing down to it. And I know that that sounds a bit semi-dramatic, like, am I an idol worshiper? It's like something doesn't have to be like a physical thing in your house to be an idol. Idols are often just things in the heart, things in the mind, they're strongholds. I realized that what I was doing is that I was making the other side a god to me, because whatever it is that they said and whatever it is that they held me hostage to, I believed that it was true. And I also did the same with myself. If I was unforgiving towards myself, I basically put myself on a pedestal above God's truth, above his opinion of me, and I made it my truth and my God. So now I'm no longer serving the God of the truth, I'm serving an idol of unforgiveness. So what I decided to do after that whole thing was sort of over is that I looked at myself honestly and I said to myself, how much time do I want to waste on this unforgiveness towards myself? How much time? Do I want to give it a year? Do I want to give it a month? Do I want to give it a day, an hour? Like, how much time am I willing to invest? Or in other words, how much time am I willing to waste? When God already said, hey, you asked for forgiveness and I forgave you, and I'm still sitting here being like, I don't feel forgiven, that's a waste of time. And so I'm starting to look at it a bit more practically, not even trying to measure how bad it is what I've done, but more, how much time do I want to invest in whatever thing that I have done? I think that when you feel forgiven in life and you feel that you have become righteous in God and that He's justified you, it really does open the way to all the great avenues of life, because you're not walking around like a guilt-ridden person who is inferior and isn't worth anyone's good attention or existing. You know what I mean? That is definitely not what God thinks about me. And the crazy thing is that we can actually be forgiven on the spot. And so I'm trying to get better at actually believing that the moment that I asked forgiveness from God, that He actually really did forgive me, and that people don't get to define for me if I've been forgiven or not, if I am worthy of being forgiven. So another thing that helped me in this situation was that I decided to look at the other side with eyes of compassion, because I'm like, you know what? I could say a lot of bad things. I could point out all of their weaknesses, and yet I said to myself, that's really bad. That's not building. That's not the point. God isn't sitting there being like, you did this and this and this and this, and I don't want to do that to them either. Looking at the other person's faults and saying, wait a second, I do have the power to forgive. So if I forgive them, then shouldn't I give the same forgiveness towards myself, because I'm just human as they are? And if I can understand that they're just humans, then why don't I look at myself the same way? I'm also human. I'm also not without my faults. Then forgiveness becomes this thing that is not based on your emotions, but it's based on the principles of God. And I really do think that that is the only way to forgive yourself, is once you rely on God's ability within you to forgive. So if you are one of those people like me that is very hard for you to forgive yourself, my advice would be stop for a second. Breathe. Then, if you've been forgiven by God, ask yourself truly, how much precious time do you want to invest in feeling guilty? How much time do you want to invest in feeling like you're not worthy, like you're inferior, like you're not good enough? And honestly, if you need some time for your soul to process that and just be like, wow, I actually do regret this, I actually don't like that, I think that that is okay. Doing some soul searching is not bad. I think we do have to have a healthy amount of remorse over our sins and our mistakes, but it shouldn't be one of those things that it starts controlling you and then you become enslaved to guilt. And so fine, give yourself a bit of time to think about it, but don't camp there. Don't stay there, because you don't want to waste so much time on something that has already been given to you. And then if you're holding yourself still hostage, you have to look at other people and ask yourself, well, do I hold them hostage in the same way? And if I don't, then what is different between them and I? Really nothing. And so even though this vlog has not been like the 12 steps to forgiving yourself, I'm just sharing what I have gone through recently and seeing if you guys connect to it in any way. And also, I really love the fact that you guys share in your comments your actual opinions, because I'm not afraid of people's opinions. I very, very, very rarely will erase or block someone. I think that people should be able to freely express themselves, and it's okay if we differ on opinions, then you have a different opinion than mine. Like, that's absolutely okay. And so in a respectful and honorable way, please share your comments, share your experience with unforgiveness. And I know that I always learn from you guys when you share your opinion. That's it on the holding yourself hostage to unforgiveness. I wanted to say that I have already reached 1,000 subscribers. I'm at 1,008, and yes, I am still counting. And soon I think I'll be monetized, and so I'll probably do some kind of party for that. I didn't start this channel in order to get monetized, but I'm thinking that it is smart to try and be resourceful in life. And so honestly, if YouTube could be not just like a hobby, but actually like a full-time gig, I would be so happy to do this with you guys. So feel free to share, comment, subscribe, and I really do love you guys. And I will see you guys in a vlog very, very soon.